Well, folks, welcome back to the Rife Report. The voters of New York City will face a pivotal choice in tomorrow's election on November 4th, 2025. We will see the 2025 New York City Mayoral Race, which is pitting Democrat Socialist Zohran Mamdani. I don't even know if you can call him a Democratic Socialist. Like, what the hell does that even mean? We have the self-described communist Zohran Mamdani, who is going to run against the independent Andrew Cuomo and the Republican in this race, Curtis Sliwa. Now, current polls show that Mamdani is leading in this election right now. Current polls have Mamdani right around 46%. In the aggregate, Cuomo's right around 31%, and Curtis Sliwa is right around 16% in the most recent Real Clear Politics average. Now, you jump over to Decision Desk headquarters, a little different. Mamdani and Cuomo are about the same. Sliwa has a little bit of a higher vote share in this most recent one. And then, of course, the creme de la creme, the final New York City mayoral poll from Atlas Intel. Now, remember, people have really we're kind of taken aback by yesterday, or I guess this was 2 days ago. Atlas released a poll. They showed that the race was going to be extremely close. The poll that they had showed that the race, that Mamdani was leading over Cuomo. It does say 5 points, but if you look at the actual numbers, it was 6 points. He was leading over Cuomo. Now, in the most recent poll they've released as of right now, it shows that Zohran Mamdani is only leading in this most recent poll over Andrew Cuomo by about 4 points. 4 points in this race. And we showed that without the Republican in the race, in a Cuomo versus Mamdani head-to-head matchup, Mamdani would lose. He would only receive 44% of the vote. So a lot that we have to talk here. Now, we know in the 2025 New York City mayoral race, Mamdani's far left agenda really risks upending the city's stability. Like, we already have a very unstable city, there's a lot of instability. That's the reality of the situation. You have a massive deficit of $7 billion that continues to grow. Well, look, I think Cuomo is a complete piece of shit human being. Like, if we're being honest, if you have to tell me I have to pick the guy who forced elderly people into retirement homes with COVID patients during 2020, or a self-described communist, like, I can't vote for the communist. I can never support that communist. And it shows because, look, the polls are tightening. Polls are tightening right now. And I think a lot of it's going to come down to who turns out. Is it going to be a younger, 35 and under electorate, or are we looking at an older electorate? The older electorate clearly supports Andrew Cuomo in this race. And we have already seen time and time again that close to a million New Yorkers are ready to flee New York City if this far-left socialist Mamdani becomes mayor. Talk about your tax base disappearing. Talk about all the billionaires and millionaires leaving New York City to go to Florida, to go to Texas, to go to more tax-friendly havens for them. Places that actually respect the meritocracy, that respect the fact that they worked for it and they deserve it. Now, granted, everyone should pay their fair share of taxes, and I'm not going to balk against that. But to say that we're going to tax the rich basically into oblivion, workers are going to somehow control the means of production, it's just insane. But the current state of the race right now, Mamdani has clinched the Democrat primary, really in a shocking upset over Cuomo back in June, leveraging his support from the Democrat Socialists of America, this grassroots energy and youth movement that he used. And it showed polls underestimated him by 15 points. 15 points back in the primary. Now, like we said, we have a three-way field between Mamdani, Cuomo, and Sliwa. But looking at the odds, it's pretty clear. They really believe that Zohran Mamdani will be the next mayor of New York City. That's pretty clear. Now, from a Marist poll in October, Mamdani is dominating with Democrats, winning about 63% of all Democrat support. But Cuomo is leading with independents, and he has about 50% of the vote. And they're all tied, all three of them. Curtis Sliwa, Cuomo, and Mamdani are all tied at 33% among Republicans. Now, this is really a story of a generational divide. What we're looking at here really comes down to a generational divide. You can see that everyone under 35 basically is backing Mamdani, 2/3 of the time, and people over the age of 50 are backing Cuomo about 40-50% of the time, depending on the poll that you look at. And so 60%, 66% of voters, or likely voters, say that New York City is heading the wrong direction on crime and cost. And they want to prioritize safety. And the people who prioritize safety and the direction of the city and crime are voting for Cuomo by 6 points, 38 points to 32 points. Now, things have started to tighten in the last couple of days, and you could see it in this Atlas poll. They're showing that things are really, really starting to get tight here. That potentially, if the Republican didn't drop out, or that if he would have dropped out, maybe there's a chance that we could stop a self-described communist from being the new mayor of New York City. That's the reality. Now, the second point I want to focus on here is a little different. I want to focus on how damning it is that New York, and New York City specifically, is about to elect a communist. Look, this is a great piece from Politico. Now, it says 5 things we learned about Zohran Mamdani. Let's just go down to point 2. One of the most interesting pieces that I saw from this was how little opposition research was done by the public or was noticed by the public before this. Before the general election, there really wasn't. And these efforts to dig up old information has revealed a lot about the Democrat nominee. The fact that his family has a luxury pad in Uganda, which was protected by armed guards, and his smiling picture with one of the architects of Uganda's anti-gay laws, and also another picture showing him with an unindicted co-conspirator of 9/11. Like, how? Who is this guy? Who is this guy? He clearly states that the end goal of what he wants is seizing the means of production. That is communism. That is communism. He says that cops shouldn't be the ones responding to domestic violence calls. Like, who the fuck do you think is going to respond to that? It is just damning that we are about to elect a self-identified Democrat, socialist, or communist. He is a communist. He's echoing Marxist ideology. Look at his platform. Jacking up corporate taxes, universal rent freezes, free buses. This all mirrors the failed socialist experiments that we've seen all over the world. All over the world. And he's done nothing to sever his ties with extremists. Nothing. They have praised communist dictators from around the world, signaling that they really care about the ideology over pragmatism, which that's going to be tough. He's going to get into to become the mayor and realize it's not as easy as he thinks it's going to be. But, look, add on top of that, he backed defunding the police. He wanted to defund the New York Police Department. He called them racist. Soft on crime liberals like this is why downtowns are so dangerous. That's why. And I think the verdict that you get from this is that when we elect an untested ideologue with communist or communist adjacent views, we are gambling. We are gambling with a powerhouse in America. Look, I think Cuomo is a terrible guy. I think he's a horseshit person. I think he was a terrible governor. All in. Would I vote for him over Mamdani? 1,000%. 1,000%. Because at this point, basically voting for the Republican is a vote for Mamdani. I think Cuomo is a piece of crap. But look, we have to pick the lesser of two evils here. This is a binary choice. Virtually, it's a binary choice that we are looking at right now. And I get it. Some people don't want to recognize it for what it is, but that's what it is. That's what it is. But the third point, polling without Curits Sliwa. Now, in a head-to-head hypothetical matchup, Mamdani is leading Cuomo from the most recent, the Marist poll in September, shows that Mamdani leads Cuomo by about 10 points in the head-to-head matchup if the Republican were to exit this. Cuomo was able to grab about 60% of conservatives in that race. Now, like we said, poll came out from Atlas Intel today showing that they believe Cuomo would win by over 5 points if Curtis was not in this race. That's really what they believe at this point. And that's what the polls are showing us. And now, granted, should polls all be taken with some little grain of salt? Of course. Of course. But still, what are the chances? It's like the thing is Zohran Mamdani is going to be the next. He's going to be the next one. And now, this is a prediction for who will be the next mayor of New York City. And now, although I don't have one of exactly New York City, we're just going to use the New York State map right here. The reality is that I think it's extremely likely, I'd say a 95% chance that Zohran Mamdani he wins. And I think he'll probably win. Does he win by 10 points? Does he win by 10 to 15 points? I think somewhere in there is a good a margin that I feel comfortable with. Look, like we said, over at Real Clear Politics, he currently has a 14.5% hold in this in the most recent polling data that we have out of there. And the historical data shows that moderates break against the socialist, communist type of the party, 60-65% of the time, which is good. But the fact that it is a three-way race, push it to a two-way race, Cuomo might win by a couple points. So I think he's going to win by 5 or 6 points. I don't. I really don't. I think at the end of the day that if Cuomo has any chance, Curtis needs to drop out and they need to vote for Cuomo. And Cuomo would probably win by maybe a point or two. That's it. But I think it is very clear at this point that Zohran Mamdani will be the next mayor of New York City. It is a very sad sight, but unfortunately, in reality, this is what we have to figure out. Every 20 to 40 years, we just have to kind of find out, every generation has to kind of find out for themselves. They have to find out that these socialist and communist ideas, and they don't work. They don't work in theory, and they don't work in reality. When they're implemented, they do not work. The only way they work is if it becomes a dictatorship, and basically through the use of force, that's the only way things are going to get done. It is only through the use of force in which communism would quote unquote work. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And these ridiculous policies are going to get shot down left and right. And if you thought, the city was bankrupt already, the city's going to be even more bankrupt after this. After they lose half their tax base. Because basically, what is it? Everyone who makes, the top 10% pay like what? Net 50% of all taxes? Like, if they lose that, what are they going to have to do? Raise taxes on the middle class. That's the only way they're going to be able to recoup for it. So, but folks, that's going to wrap things up for today. This is my final prediction on the 2025 New York City mayoral race. Cuomo is not going to be there to rescue the city from a socialist in Zohran Mamdani. Mamdani, I do believe, will be the next mayor of the city of New York. But folks, that's going to wrap things up. As always, drop down below, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button. Make sure you never miss another video from us again in the future. And folks, we will catch you next time.